Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of the Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans, fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee, who have been on our journey with us since literally day one. So thank you, Folgers. Would not be the same without you. Also, huge thank you to our sponsor, Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, the Sonic Surgeon, an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found pretty much anywhere that good music can be found, being Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, etc., etc. So tonight, of course, we're welcoming back with great honor Captain Paul Watson, and we're going to be recapping a little bit on the last show, and of course, you know, moving a little bit forward with education and protecting our oceans, conservation, preservation of the species. There's just so much. So for me, this is a real honor. And if you didn't catch him last time, you're definitely going to have a treat this time. So without further ado, I will bring him on right now because he is waiting. Hello.
Hello. It's so nice to be here again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. You'll notice I'm minus Amelia. She's still down with she's at the tail end of COVID. So she's going to be in chat room, like right here, saying hello. She'll be putting forward the odd question in there. And I'll just bring it up so you can see what her comments are as well. Okay. Right now, it's the only way she can partake, so to speak. So, welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. What I'd like to do, just to recap for those who missed the last time who are listening, is just, like I say, the humble beginnings, recapping what brought you to being, I guess, what I would deem, because, you know, I'm such a huge advocate of yours. I always call you, you know, our guardian of oceans. Just, you know, it's just, I know it's just, you know, we're not trying to put all the weight on your shoulders, but it pretty much is, because you're probably one of the only few people, along with the Sea Shepherd, that really are making a difference. So I'll let you take it from here.
Well, where would you like me to start?
Well, I guess, again, we'll just recap a little bit. One doesn't just wake up as a child and say, yeah, I'm going to save the world. What brought you to this point?
Well, you know, when I was 10 years old, I was a member of a club. It was started by a woman named Ida Fleming. It was called the Kindness Club. Oh. And it was set up to, you know, to teach children to be kind to animals. But also when I was 10 years old, I spent the summer swimming with a family of beavers in my home province of New Brunswick in Canada. And I had a wonderful time that summer swimming with these beavers. And the next summer, when I went back to look for the beavers, they were gone. And I found out that trappers had come in and taken them all during the winter. And that made me really angry. Yeah. So that winter, I began to walk the trap lines and rescue animals in the traps and to destroy the traps.
Right.
Later, Ida Fleming of the Kindness Club, she called me the hitman for the Kindness Club.
A 10. I love it. Right. So you just basically, you pretty much did get started early on. I guess what we'll go from here is, most anyone who follows you will know you from, of course, the Sea Shepherd, will know you from Whale Wars, will know you from Greenpeace. Why don't we start with Sea Shepherd? What exactly is Sea Shepherd? We know it's your brainchild and it's your baby, but what is it exactly?
Well, I was a co-founder of Greenpeace in 1972, but I left Greenpeace in 77 to establish Sea Shepherd. And the difference is that Sea Shepherd doesn't protest, we intervene. And I set it up with a specific strategy, which I called aggressive nonviolence. Now, we're not going to hurt anybody, but we're going to directly and physically intervene. And I have no problem at all in destroying machinery or equipment which is used illegally to take life. To me, nonviolence is protecting living things. If somebody's about to shoot an elephant and you smash the rifle out of the person's hand and destroy the rifle, to me, that's an act of nonviolence. And the problem is that we live in a society where we revere material things over living things. I think this was best summed up once by a ranger in Zimbabwe. He was being taken to task by human rights groups because he had shot and killed a poacher who was about to kill a black rhinoceros. And they were saying, how dare you take a human life to protect an animal? And his answer, I think, really illustrated our hypocrisy. He said, you know, if I was a police officer in Harare and a man ran out of a Barclays bank with a bag of money and I shot him in the head, killed him right there, you'd call me a hero, put a medal on me. Mm-hmm. Why is it that a bag of paper has more value than the future heritage of the nation of Zimbabwe? And so he really hit the nail right on the head right there. We value money, we value material possessions, but life becomes secondary to that. In fact, we exterminate billions of animals every year in the name of profits. And I think that's probably one of the most disgraceful parts of being a human being, is that our legacy of slaughter, not just of animals, but also of each other over centuries and centuries.
I absolutely agree with you. So what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about you and everything that you do? Because there's lots of them out there, right?
Yeah, but I don't really pay too much attention to misconceptions. I really don't care what people think. I think the best way to illustrate this is back in 1986 when we sank half of Iceland's whaling fleet. I was confronted by a former colleague in Greenpeace, and he said, I just want to let you know that what you did in Iceland was reprehensible, despicable, and you're a disgrace and an embarrassment to the entire movement. And I said, well, so? And he said, well, aren't you concerned about what people think about you? I said, no, not really. We sank those ships for the whales, so we didn't sink them for you. Find me a whale that disagreed with what we did, and I promise you we won't do it again.
There you go. Well said. Well said. So basically, anybody that would deem you to be reckless, all those naysayers, it's essentially you guys have never had a loss of life. No one's ever been hurt.
No, we've never killed anybody. We've never injured anybody. We've never had anybody injured, which is remarkable considering right now we have 14 ships. We've been running ships for 45 years, and we haven't lost anybody. When I was in the Norwegian Merchant Marine, we lost 3 people, just in 1 year. Wow. So industrial accidents on ships are quite common. But I think one of the reasons that we have such an unblemished record there is because, unlike professionals, amateur crews tend to be more cautious. You know, it's like that old story about the guy who, after 1,000 jumps, had jumped out of an airplane without the parachute because he just was used to jumping out of the airplane and didn't give any thought to not having the parachute.
Right.
And so I think that our crew, the difference between the volunteers in our crew and professionals is not only that, but also you can't pay people to take the risks and do the work that the volunteers in our ships do. Mm-hmm. That kind of passion, that kind of courage is really you can't pay people to do for that.
No, it's true. No, I think that's the key right there. It is passion. You can't put a value on that. When you truly believe in something, you'll go to the ends of the earth to defend it, literally. And you guys literally do. Everybody's chiming in the chat. Thank you. Bradley is a fellow New Brunswicker, also a small captain vessel. Captain, what was around the clock? Is that what his name, Bradley? Sorry. So anyway, big hello there. But he said he did help to save a whale that was tangled in the fishing nets. So it's nice to see that people do take those chances and do it. I think if you were anything other than who you were with respect to how you do things and have the amount of respect that you do, you wouldn't have all of these I call them celebrity heroes, people coming forward and sitting behind the scenes and making sure, like that, because you have pretty famous names, like the Steve Irwin, I think was one of your first, wasn't it? And that was like just a well-respected man.
Well, we've had a lot of celebrity supporters, and the value of that is that we live in a media culture, and
Yes.
celebrities carry a lot of weight. Martin
Yes.
Sheen once said, we don't really know much, but everybody thinks we do, so we might as well put that to good use.
I
And
agree.
so it's, for instance, I learned my lesson on this really early in 1977. We had been fighting to stop the Canadian seal hunt, and in 1977, we took Bridget Bardot out to the ice floes. Her posing cheek to cheek with a baby seal gave us the front page or front cover of every major magazine in the world.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
we achieved just with that pose. We received so much. People, pay attention to celebrities. A few years ago, I had to get a message to Russia, the Russian government, because they had all these orcas and beluga whales that were in captivity in Vladivostok, and they were going to sell them to the Chinese. And how do we get to them? They're not going to, Putin's not going to listen to me. But
No.
I wrote up a speech, but I sent Pamela Anderson there to deliver it, and they
Listen
listened.
to Pam.
They listened to it, and and the animals were not sold to the Chinese; they were released.
So there you go.
You can utilize this. We've had quite a few celebrities actually participate on our campaigns. Michelle Rodriguez was a crew member. Daryl Hannah was a crew member. Martin Sheen, Richard Dean Anderson, Aidan Quinn. They've all crewed on our ships.
Oh, wow. So they're really just putting, like, they're right hands on. They're not just a pretty face, as I say. They're right in the meat and potatoes middle of it.
Well, Michelle Rodriguez is pretty damn tough too.
Yeah, let's not tell her she's not. So that could be a whole other problem. No, I love her though. So now let's just start getting into the core of everything. I've listened, I've been listening to interviews of you forever, and I love how you explain things. I love the whole I guess the ocean as a planet. So what is the ocean to you really? Because I love your analogy of everything.
Well, I think that it's really the planet ocean. We call it the Earth, but it's really the planet ocean. But what is that? People, when they think of the ocean, they think of the sea, of course. But the
Yes.
ocean is much more than that. It's water. It's water in continuous circulation. And sometimes it's in the sea, and sometimes it's in ice. Sometimes it's underground. Sometimes it's in the clouds. And sometimes it's in the cells of every plant and animal on the planet. That water is flowing through all of those different mediums. So the question is, what is the ocean? The answer is we are the ocean. All living things on the planet are the ocean. And the water that's in your body right now was once, locked in ice. It was once flowing underground. It was once in the sky. It was once in the bodies of other animals and plants. And in fact, since water has no age, it was once pissed by a dinosaur.
There we go. I've never quite heard that one, but I like it. But yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So when we look at another analogy, Spaceship Earth, I thought was very profound the way you described that.
Well, if we look at the planet as a spaceship, which is what it is really, because we're on this incredible voyage around the Milky Way galaxy, and it takes about 250 million years to orbit the galaxy, which means we've only done it 20 times.
Right.
But every spaceship has a life support system, and that provides us with the air we breathe and the food we eat, and regulates climate and temperature. And that life support system on Spaceship Earth is run by engineers. And these engineers maintain all those systems. We humans were not engineers. We're passengers. We're having a wonderful time entertaining ourselves, amusing ourselves. But what we are doing is we're murdering engineers. We're killing them. And there's only so many of these engineers that you can kill before the machinery begins to break down and the life support system is no longer functioning. To give you one example, there's one group of plants on this planet called phytoplankton, a lot of microscopic small little plants that live in the ocean. These plants produce 70% of the oxygen in the air that we breathe. Now, since 1950, there's been a 40% diminishment in phytoplankton populations in the sea. And that is going to cause some severe problems. And the reality is, if phytoplankton disappears from the ocean, we die. We don't live on this planet without phytoplankton. It is absolutely a necessity to have phytoplankton producing that oxygen. Yes, oxygen is produced by trees and Amazonia and places like that, but only 30%. Right. 70% comes from phytoplankton. And so there's so many species that are so important to our survival. Bees and worms and insects, all of these species that take care of all of these problems, a lot of the problems that we cause. And we have to look on them as sharing this planet with us and contributing to it. And also have to humble ourselves and recognize that a lot of them are far more important than we are. I got a call a few years ago from a guy from, I think it was Brett Hume from Fox News. And he said, I heard that you said that, bees and trees and worms were more important than people. Did you say something like that? I said, yeah, I said exactly that. He said, how can you say something so outrageous as to say bees and trees and worms and fish and everything are more important than people? I said, well, I said it because they're more important than people. That's a fact, because they can live here without us, but we can't live here without them. We need them. They don't need us. That makes them ecologically far more important than we are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I always find it fascinating that people are not, I guess as educated isn't really, probably the best way to put it. I really think that's something that people just feel self-entitled. I don't know, but it never ceases to amaze me how difficult it is to get people involved in certain things. And marine preservation and conservation just seems to be something that's so far removed from most people, yet it is so important.
Well, most things in nature are far removed from people, and it's really because, about 10,000 years ago, we came up with this viewpoint or this perspective called anthropocentrism, which is, it's all about us. Everything was created for us. Nothing would exist without us. We're the center of creation, the center of the universe. That is the anthropocentric attitude. Nothing else matters. It's secondary to who we are. Every single major religion on this planet is anthropocentric. Every one of them says that we're the center, we're the dominant form, we're the most important species. And that to me negates their very credibility, the fact that they would say that. There is another way of looking at things, biocentrism, which a lot of indigenous cultures certainly understand. And that's this idea that we're part of everything, we're connected to everything, we're interdependent with everything. And so therefore, flowers and animals are all our relations, really, as a lot of the indigenous cultures would view it. And I think that's a healthier way of looking at things. Otherwise, anthropocentrism could be the death of all of us.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. So, well, I mean, before we get into, I guess, the full education of everything, as I always say the human race, as part of this planet, the global race, are we losing the battle, do you think? Are we in too deep? Have we gone too far? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really worry about the future.
Right.
Because we have no power over the future. We only have power over the present. So what we do in the present will define what the future will be. That's where we have to focus all our energies, our imagination, our courage, our passion in directing the issues in the present. And we'll see how that turns out. But I think that to be a conservationist, you have to understand that what we do today will determine what the world will be like 1,000 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now. And that's how much of an impact that we're going to have. So, but unfortunately, in an anthropocentric society, most people don't look ahead more than 10 years, to after they graduate or after the next election or actually the next fiscal year, that kind of thing. Not many people really look ahead that far. And, what kind of world is this going to be now in 2050, 2075? And a lot of people really don't care. I asked a fisherman one time in Alaska, I said, look, for no other reason, protect the fishery so that your children will have a healthy fishing, there will be a healthy fish population. And he said to me, look, I don't really care. In 5 years, my mortgage is paid. And after that, I couldn't give a damn. Why does somebody like that have children? Well, it's because it's what you do. don't really give much thought about it. It's just what you do. By the way, the root meaning of the word mortgage means contract onto death. It's a death contract.
Right.
So everybody's so busy paying off their death contracts, they're not
That's
living, or certainly not looking ahead into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a real problem, because we, as conservationists, you can look ahead and see what the world's going to be like. I remember in the 80s, I kept predicting year after year the collapse of the cod fishery on the east coast of Canada. And the government of Canada, the Department of Fisheries, said, you don't know what you're talking about. We have the best scientists in the world, the best computer models. And they do have scientists. I call them biostitutes, because pretty much they say what they're told to say. Right. And, in 1992, the cod fishery collapsed, and everybody was surprised. I wasn't surprised. I knew it was going to happen. Right. And they said, oh, it'll recover. No, it won't. It's not, it will never recover. It will not recover in our lifetime. And it hasn't. That's now 30 years on, it hasn't recovered. So the worldwide fisheries will collapse by 2050. There's no doubt about that. There won't be any fishing industry because there won't be any fish. And in 2015, at the conference on climate change in Paris, I proposed that what we need to do to really be serious about climate change is to protect the ocean. And the best way to protect the ocean, which regulates climate and temperature, is to do nothing. And what I mean by doing nothing, leave it alone. Let it repair the damage that we've done to it. That means a complete moratorium on industrialized fishing and exploitation of resources in the ocean for 50, 75 years. Give it time to repair that damage that we've done to it, or else we're going to lose it.
Yes. I heard you speaking about at one point about Kapu, which is an interesting situation. Maybe it's a much bigger scale than that, right?
In Polynesian cultures, they had this thing called Kapu, where a shaman would declare, say, a bay in Bora Bora or Hanama Bay, say in Hawaii. They would say, this bay is Kapu. No fishing in this bay for 20 years.
Wow.
If anybody was caught fishing in that bay, it was the death penalty. And people say, oh, well, that's a little extreme. But not from their point of view.
Right.
They knew that if the fish disappeared, they would die. It was a question of survival. The problem in the world today is there is no Kapu areas. There's no place for the fish to go. In fact, Rayathon has a fish finding device in the fishing industry, and their motto on the device is, the fish can run, but they can't hide. And that's the problem. They can run, but they can't hide. And just 2 months ago, we documented a super trawler in the Bay of Biscay that had dumped 100,000 blue whiting that were floating dead on the ocean surface. Why did they do this? That wasn't what they wanted to catch. That was an unprofitable species. So they dumped it so they could go and have room for something that they actually wanted to catch. Bycatch by the fishing industry is absolutely astounding. For every kilo of shrimp that gets it to the market, 22 kilos of something else has had to die to get it there. Right. And so the waste is just absolutely incredible. About 40% of all of the fish that's caught by industrialized fishing operations isn't eaten by people. It's rendered into fish meal, which is fed to chickens on factory farms or pigs or domestic salmon or other animals. And so this is, and it's also causing quite a bit of problems. And we're doing a lot of patrols in West Africa, and West African fishing communities, just these guys who go out in their small boats, they can't catch any fish because the industrial trawlers, the Chinese trawlers, are out there grabbing them, and then they haul the fish into West Africa and render them in these giant factories, which pollute everything, to turn them into fish meal, so then it can be sent on to China and other places for providing a cheap source of protein for raising domestic animals.
Oh my God, it's so sad. And do you get any support from the world governments, or or you just feel like you're just smacking your head into a wall the whole way through?
Well, we're working with the governments, especially in West Africa and Latin American countries. And what we started in 2015, we went after the toothfish poachers in the Southern Ocean. There are 6 vessels down there operating, the most notorious being a vessel called the Thunder. We went after it. We found it. We had 2 ships down there. The Bob Barker chased the Thunder for 110 days. It's the longest pursuit of a poacher in maritime history. But the Sam Simon, our other vessel, its job came in behind the Bob Barker, and its job was to pull up the net that the Thunder had set. That net was 2 kilometers down. It took us 200 hours to pull it up. It was 72 kilometers long and weighed 70 tons. One net, one ship.
God.
And so we chased the thunder all the way to the waters of West Africa, to Sao Tome. And there they had no place to go. The Nigeria had removed their flag. Interpol was after them. As long as we were on their tail, they couldn't escape. Anywhere they went, we would have them turned over and arrested. So the captain of the Thunder decided to sink his own ship to destroy the evidence on board. But that didn't work because we boarded the sinking ship. We got the evidence, samples of the fish, the computers, the logbooks, and he ended up going to prison for 3 years in Sao Tome. Actually, he wasn't sent to prison for his illegal activities. He was sent to prison for sinking a ship in Sao Tome waters. But the company was fined 17 million euros, but they didn't have to pay because the Spanish courts said it was outside of their jurisdiction. So they didn't have to pay, but they didn't get insurance for the ship, and they certainly lost the ship, and that resulted in the arrest of 5 other vessels. We chased one of them into the waters of Indonesia. It was seized by the Indonesian Minister of Fisheries, and she blew it up. Actually,
good for
demonstration.
Her. Wow.
But out of that, we got to start working with Interpol and with all these various governments, and got invited by many of these governments to. What we do is we come into their waters, their territorial waters. We provide the resources, the crew, the ship. They provide the authority. They put on enforcement people on our ships, and we go and patrol their waters for poachers. And that's been highly effective. We've arrested 78 poaching vessels in West African waters. And most importantly, it's become a deterrent. Those poaching vessels know that if they're there, they're going to get caught. So we've been working with Tanzania and Namibia, Gambia, Liberia, Seychelles, Sao Tome, Cabo Verde, the Gabon, and that's been a very successful venture. And now we're also working with Peru and Mexico. And in Mexico, we've been working in partnership with the Mexican government and the Mexican Navy to protect the endangered vaquita porpoise. And we've pulled some 120,000 meters of illegal gill nets that have been set there. And we stand guard in the vaquita refuge. And anytime the poachers come in, we notify the Mexican Navy to come in and chase them out of there. So we're finding that working in partnerships with many of these governments is proving to be a very effective approach.
Who gives you the most resistance, government speaking? I think people would be very surprised.
Well, any bureaucracy gives us problems like that.
Land of the free, though.
But to show you how, if you can get the documentation, if you can get the evidence, you force them into a position where they have to do something. We caught a Chinese fleet using drift nets in the Indian Ocean, which is highly illegal. We documented that, and we chased them. We chased them all the way back to the coast of China. And when we got there's 2 Chinese warships. And they said, what's going on here? And the fishermen said, oh, these pirates are chasing us. So they contacted us, and we said, well, we caught these guys fishing illegally. We got it all on tape. And, the evidence is clear. And you know what the Chinese Navy said? Bring them in. We escorted Chinese fishing vessels up a river in China. They were arrested. The captains lost their licenses, and the companies were fined. When presented with the evidence, they have to respond on that.
So you back them right into a corner.
Yeah. The worst fishing operations are the China, of course, and Spain. Spain has a very large illegal, fishing fleet.
Wow.
It's run by what we call the Galician Mafia in Galicia, Spain, and particularly by one family, the Vidal Armadores family, who are behind most of these poaching vessels. And of course, they have a lot of pull with the Spanish courts and the Spanish government.
Of course. So essentially,
the other problem is that about $76 billion every year is spent worldwide to subsidize industrialized fishing. It doesn't make any money. It exists only because of these subsidies. You don't go out with $100 million ships unless you've gotten government backing to do that. These super trawlers, these longliners, these drag trawlers, these are all really expensive ships, and they have to pull in a lot of fish in order to pay off their operating costs and to pay off their mortgages and everything. So it's sort of a vicious circle where they have to catch more fish to get, and then as the fish populations become lower, they need better equipment and bigger equipment in order to catch the fewer fish, and it leads more and more to diminishment.
Yeah, but then you're also getting into poaching like Amelia made a good point in chat. She goes, it's difficult to understand shark fins. It's like, imagine someone removing your arms and tossing you into the ocean. It's just so inhumane. Like, it's not like they're even, that's not fishing. That's just sheer torture and murder. That's not fishing.
I know it's us. We kill about 75 to 90 million sharks every year, and we view the shark as this incredible monster. The average number of people killed by sharks every year is about 5, and usually it's a mistaken identity. But in comparison, we kill 75 to 90 million of them. So who's really the monster here? And people are so terrified of sharks, but for no reason. In fact, it's more dangerous to play golf than it is to swim in the ocean. When you consider that hundreds of millions of people go into the ocean every single day, and the average number of people killed is 5, then you can see just how ridiculous that is. It's more dangerous to play golf because more people die on golf courses every year from bee stings and lightning strikes than are killed by sharks in the ocean. In fact, more people die from soda pop machines falling on them every year than are killed by sharks. That's an average of 9.
Wow, that's funny. I mean, it is. It's not, but
so, we somehow demonize the shark, but dogs and horses kill more people. Hippopotamuses, crocodiles, they kill all more people than sharks do. And usually shark attacks are mistaken identity because, unfortunately, surfers on their surfboards look like seals from down below. And if you notice a lot in many of these cases, they bite, but they don't eat the surfer or the swimmer. They just take the bite and then they're off. Occasionally it does happen, but normally it's just a case of mistaken identity, really. As surfer, the world's most famous surfer, Kelly Slater, said, well, if you're afraid of sharks, well, just stay out of the ocean.
Right. Right. Which would be a shame because there's just so few like species on average that are aggressive. The great white, well, it's a big boy right there. You want to get the heck out of its way.
Great white sharks are pretty much harmless. That's not where your shark
are they really? See, look, it's educational. So they just look big and bad.
Yeah, we have video of people swimming alongside great white sharks.
Wow.
But when you put yourself in a cage, then you throw blood in the water, and of course then everything goes crazy, and then they film it for all that dramatic effect on that. But it's really is. Sharks are not the killing machines that they're depicted to be. I think Rob Stewart did a wonderful job when he made the film Sharkwater to illustrate just how valuable sharks are. Sharks are an apex predator in the ocean, and without them, the ecology of marine ecosystems would be radically altered. Every fish in the ocean, its shape, its camouflage, its speed has been molded through evolution because of the behavior of sharks. Wow. And also, here's an interesting thing. The 3 places in the world where shark attacks do happen frequently are Queensland, West Australia, and La Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. Now, what these 3 places have in common are shark control programs where they kill sharks. And so, for instance, on La Reunion Island, they go in and they kill the sharks that are around the reefs. Now, what this does is creates a vacuum that attracts sharks from the outside to move in. Now, the sharks that are moving in, they're very much more aggressive. They're much more territorial because they're trying to establish their territory there. So by shark culling programs are literally pulling in more aggressive sharks into those ecosystems. And so I just find it incredible that the 3 main areas for shark attacks are the places where they routinely kill off sharks and shark kill programs.
Wow. Well, there you go. That's actually an interesting observation, but that's what you guys do. So I mean, I guess media, friend or foe?
Well,
I know it's a loaded question.
Well, media used to be something that we could understand. Now it's completely chaotic.
Yeah,
we don't even know what truth. As a journalist myself, I never really valued editors. When I had to have editors. Now I understand why we have editors.
Right. Oh, it's a whole different world now. I'm sure editors are just working overtime.
But what is truth in the media? We don't know anymore. What is truth in the media? It's And the media is so biased. I remember the days of Walter Cronkite, when you could listen to the news and he'd tell you what's happening without any bias, without any emotion. I mean, and that's the way it is. This is what he would say.
Yeah.
And now it's like everybody's got a bloody opinion. I don't want to hear opinions from people who from anchors. Just tell us what the hell's going on. We don't need to be your personal viewpoint on it.
No, but do you think the days of real journalism is gone? Because every media outlet says the exact same thing, almost word for word. I just feel like, when was the last time a journalist went out there, dug for a story, and really protected the sources to which they were coming from, and it was just more important to get the truth out there. And it wasn't about funding and how much they got and being regulated. I just don't think we see anything like all of these. Honestly, when Whale Wars was on, I think we saw more of what was actually happening to our world's oceans. And it took a TV show to bring it to light, because you were not seeing that stuff
on
media and news. Even back then.
Ian Urbina was a reporter for the New York Times, and he covered the story with us on the toothfish poachers. And he actually has left the New York Times. He wrote a book called Outlaw Ocean, and now as a freelance journalist, he's really uncovering a lot of stories around the world about illegal fishing activities and other things. And so there really are, reputable, credible journalists out there. But the problem is that most of the major news outlets are controlled by corporations, and they have an agenda. And so it's really hard to get a sense of what's really happening in the world. They decide what you're going to think, what you're going to wear, what you're going to look to like, and you just do it, And then next week we forget what the story was last week.
Right. It's true. It's true. Yeah, I agree. We've learned that just over the last couple of years, especially with, everything that was going on in the world, and you're getting little bits of information. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we're not talking about that anymore. Now we're onto this. Like, wait, so this wasn't a thing now? It's just, you're going through all of these cycles. So what can... Oh, let me ask Amelia's question before I get into my next question. We'll put it up here for you. What advice do you give someone who is serious about contributing to the cause and really getting out there the way you do, I guess within their means, right?
Well, I think that, first of all, people should understand that they have the power to change things. And that if you harness the virtues of courage and imagination to your passion, you can change things. And it's remarkable what people are able to do. I mean, look what Greta Thunberg has done. I mean, 16-year-old girl from Sweden. And then, because of a man named David Wingate, the Bermuda Stork Petrel did not go extinct in Bermuda. Because of Diane Fossey, we still have mountain gorillas in Rwanda. There are so many people out there who are actually making a difference. I think the most important thing is to not allow anybody to deter you, the naysayers, to tell you can't do it. You have to be, motivated by your own passion, because no matter what you're going to do, you're going to cultivate enemies and critics. And my experience of that is just ignore them. They don't mean anything.
If they care enough to do it and to criticize, it means you're hitting a nerve.
You're
doing it right.
I've always measured our success by the number of death threats and hate mail we get.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You're doing something right. So basically, how do we become part of the solution and stop being a part of the problem?
I think that to be part of the solution, first of all, I have to figure out what the problem is.
Right.
and
lots of them.
And also not to be intimidated by the fact that sometimes it just seems impossible to address, that these problems are impossible to solve. And to recognize that the solution to an impossible problem is to find the impossible answer. And that can be done through imagination, courage, and passion. 1972, the very idea that Nelson Mandela would become president of South Africa was unthinkable and therefore impossible. And yet the impossible became possible. So given time and energy and passion, these things will come about. We'll find solutions.
Right, right. So patience. So Amelia will add to that. Says, well, what things can we simple folk do from our homes and
Well,
our lives?
there's no such thing really as simple folk.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
Right.
everybody has a stake
Yeah.
in the survival of the planet. I think we all have a responsibility to see that the ocean doesn't die, because if the ocean dies, we die.
Right.
So it's really is a responsibility of each and every one of us to get involved some way.
Right.
And a lot of times people say, "Well, I don't have the time." Well, yeah, you do really have the time when you consider the things that you spend your time on. There's always time to do something. You don't have to do everything; just do something. I don't
Right.
expect everybody to do what I do. I mean,
No.
the strength of an ecosystem is in diversity. Therefore, the strength of any movement has to be in diversity. And that approach can be litigation or legislation or education or direct activism. It doesn't really matter. It all works towards the same thing. What are you good at? Are you a writer? Are you a teacher? Are you a lawyer? Or even if you're a politician, what can I do that can how can I make that work to make this a better world? That's really all you have to do.
So I guess it needs to start from early on, much like it did with you. I know with myself, I've always been taught, even just as a little child, here, we have a kitten, I grew up with that kitten. I was little, it was little. We grew up together until I moved out. And I think maybe it starts at home with instilling the respect for other beings, other sentient beings, animals. Everything has its part. The environment, the ecosystem. I was taught to respect all that. And I grew up with a very healthy respect and love for it. And I've always made a point of educating myself the best way that I can. Do you think, that should start there with we as parents?
Well, it
Due
should,
diligence?
but also when people ask me, well, what do we teach our children? I tend to say nothing. Don't teach them anything.
Right,
Instruct them, listen to them,
right.
because children have an intuitive understanding of reality, intuitive understanding of nature, and encourage their imagination, encourage their passion. Many years ago, back in the early 70s, I had the occasion to speak to a school in the Queen Charlotte Islands in British Columbia. It was a Haida reservation.
Oh,
And in the morning, we spoke to the kids, 6 to 7 year olds, and I said, "How many people here speak the Haida language?" They all did, every single one of them.
wow.
How many people know anything about whales? Oh, we didn't have to say anything. They just told us everything they knew about whales. They all were really passionate about it. By middle school, half of them spoke the language, and half of them knew about whales. By the time we got to the seniors, nobody spoke the Haida language, and nobody really gave a damn about whales. So what we had done is we'd taken these beautiful, intelligent children and turned them into total morons through our educational system. We taught them how to regurgitate the facts and figures that we want them to know, but they didn't come out smarter than when they went in. And I still hold that view today, that children are smarter before they go to school than when they get in. When I was a child, there's two things I did, which one of them was I cut up the map of the world and I put the pieces together. And I said to the teacher, I think this is one big continent one time. And the teacher, "Oh, that's stupid. You don't know what you're talking about." Well, it turns out I was right. Well, it wasn't that I was smarter than her. It was because it just made sense to me. It just made it was reasonable. It made sense. The other thing I said is, I think dinosaurs were like actually birds. They probably had feathers and things like this. "Oh yeah, you don't know what you're talking about." Well, it turns out again, I was right. You look at them, they look like birds, they act like birds,
Yeah.
But so children, I think, have this ability to look at the world in a different way than adults are, because we've been conditioned to look at it in certain ways. One of the biggest compliments that I've ever had was when Farley Mowat had said, "The great thing about you, Paul, is you never grew up."
Thank you. No, but it's true. You can't compare how a child looks at the world, because it's so pure, it's so innocent. They haven't yet been corrupted by life, as I say. They haven't had time to collect that baggage. People can't help it. We have baggage. life does tend to hand a lot of us lemons, and you just have to decide, do you want to just tote the lemons around, or do you want to make lemonade? And I think when a child sees something that's just so pure and honest, and they get pushed aside too often. I've always raised even my own children. It's like, don't settle for a nothing answer. Like, why is the sky blue? Because it is. My kid was like 4 going, no, I want a real answer. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, all right. It's like too many people just don't. I don't know, life is busy. I get it. But boy, that wonderment, it goes away pretty quick because they grow up and they just get consumed, by life. And
And
then they lose.
we also should encourage them to understand that they are their own masters, really.
Yeah.
I said to my daughter when she was 7, I said, look, I'm not your boss. I'm not here to tell you what to do. You're
Right.
here to make your own decisions and follow your own path. I'll encourage you, I'll support you, whatever you want to do, but I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to think. And I think that worked out quite well for her. I mean, she's a free thinker and
Right.
very successful at what she does.
Right.
Next time I spoke to her was at 17. I said, look, I'm not going to talk to you as your father. I'm going to talk to you as a man who was once a boy at 17. Don't trust a damn thing we tell you. We're full of it.
Exactly.
And try not to get married till you're 30. And
That's right.
She made it to 29.
Hey, that's close. That's close. She was almost there. No, I think it is great. People will say, well, you shouldn't, your children, you should be friends. You should be a parent. I'm like, what? Why not? Why can't you be friends? Children don't want to listen to their parents necessarily, but they will listen to their friends, on an average, and they do respect that. And I respect it too. It was hard. I being a mom, I would probably have a hard time if, like, when my daughter said, I'm going to do this, like, what? But I loved her independence, and she's also very much a free thinker and basically right to the point, and a really amazing communicator. And I think if you give them that space, boy, they'll just go the limit with it. Um, so again, so it starts. I don't know. Do you think it should be part of the educational system if it starts early enough, and if the educational system really put emphasis on the ecosystem, not just not just a little basic stuff, but I mean, really, do you think if we started that right now, do you think that would pave the way for a better future for our oceans?
Well, I think it's important also to, for children to get out and experience the natural world. One of the most amazing experiments that I had was a friend of mine was with the Student Conservation Society. It's back in the 70s. And they would take children from the inner city out into the mountains in Washington State and, to experience. So what happened is that for 2 weeks, he had taken all of these mentally, challenged children, who had, problems and that were just not as coherent, I suppose you would say, as
Right.
other people. And they'd bring them out there and he'd teach them all these things about how to pitch a tent, how to make a fire, do these things like that. Then 2 weeks later, he would bring in these kids from the inner cities who tended to be, very arrogant and, wise guy type people.
Right.
And the first thing they did is start making fun of the other children who were there, because the mentally challenged ones. And till they realized that these kids knew how to do things like make a fire, pitch a tent and everything, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So they actually gained a lot of respect for the fact that these kids could too, and they ended up with those kids teaching those inner city kids about how to live out in nature.
Right.
And so those are the kind of experiences I think that are really quite valuable.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
And I do think it's important to get children who are from the cities and that out into the wilderness to experience that firsthand.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to put this comment up only because the Waldorf Schools, I don't know if you've heard of the Waldorf Schools, but they do foster close relationship with the child with nature. They believe that nature makes children happier. I agree with this. Christina, my daughter, was definitely a student of the Waldorf School. Their second language was German, which I thought was very interesting. They didn't teach French like most here in Canada. And the things that my daughter could do very early on. I mean, she was sewing and making beeswax candles in like kindergarten, basically. And the healthy respect that they had for nature, and just how they would go out and they were planting and working in the gardens, like in kindergarten. This is stuff that, I mean, you don't see things like that. There's just,
No.
I think they had the right idea of nurturing. They believed that a child's mind developed at a certain stage, and they did everything to nurture that mind at that stage. And boy, and she's a nature lover,
Well, my son, who's 5, has spent a year at Waldorf too.
Oh, excellent. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And how was that for him? Did he enjoy that?
He likes it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. To me, it's every little bit. Some kids, like my son, was just like, this is boring. I don't want to learn how to sew. I get it. You're athletic little type. I understand. We can work with that, But no, it's a great start. There are solutions out there. So I'm going to basically talk about funding a little bit right now. So with all of these people in the world with teens amount of finances, who are all fighting to be the first in space exploration. I want to live on Mars. And I'm thinking, but we have this amazing planet with oceans that have only been explored like this, that we have this amazing planet, amazing water, all these species, beautiful, clean air that has so much potential. That has to make you just crazy. It makes me crazy, and I'm not involved in its conservation the way you are.
Well, I don't know why anybody wants to go to Mars. They don't want to live in Antarctica, and Mars is a hell of a lot more hostile than Antarctica. It's more hostile than Antarctica. But I think what it is that is people just wanting to achieve things that are like seemingly impossible. I understand the drive to do it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense when that energy should be put towards making this a better planet. Let's protect the planet Earth. Then we can go out and explore the solar system. But really, what's the point of destroying one planet while you're searching for another one? And that probably 1,000 years from now, we might be in a position where we're intelligent enough to actually do something like that. But right now, I don't see us that we're that intelligent, because we're laying waste to our own front yard right now.
No, it's true. I don't know. I would find deep sea exploration completely just as fascinating to me as exploring space.
It is. My only concern about that is that a lot of the exploration is in the search for manganese nodules and what can we mine from the bottom of the ocean.
Not quite what I had in mind, but I'm just more fascinated by how you have these species of different fish and such that live down there that grow to these gargantuan sizes because they're left alone. They're just so magnificent in their own right. It's like, how would you not want to learn more about that? It's fascinating.
It's true. And there's so much that we don't know. There's so much about all life on this planet that we don't know. There's probably millions of species that we haven't even discovered yet, or know what their purpose is.
Right.
What do they contribute to the running of the planet, that kind of thing. I mean, we're just now discovering that trees communicate with each other.
Yes.
Through fungal systems and things like this. That we're discovering that dolphins actually have first names for each other. There's so much left to discover. I think one day we'll be able to communicate with whales and dolphins using computers, because their minds are pretty much like computers. And I don't know if we really want to hear what they have to say, because it'll probably be rather embarrassing, considering what we've done to them. Yeah,
I agree with you. I can get back to the whole dolphin thing in a minute. I had found something really interesting recently. But for Amelia, what are your thoughts on the blue whales that have been recently spotted? Can their species survive?
Well, blue whales are doing really quite well. I mean, they were very close to being wiped out back in the 50s. and 60s, but they've been protected ever since. And they're, I would say their numbers are like 20, 30, 40,000 maybe. There's a lot of blue whales. They're not the problem.
Right.
The whales that are really threatened are the bowhead whales, are down to, less than 1,000. Well, let me see what other ones. The right whales that are threatened by fishing lines and everything along the eastern coast of the United States. They're the threatened whales right there. And a lot of the dolphins, like the vaquita, the porpoise in Mexico, in fact, the Irrawaddy dolphin just went extinct this week, actually. We have a program in the Amazon to protect the river dolphins there. These dolphins, these river dolphins and everything, are probably the most threatened of cetaceans on the planet right now. But again, last year we discovered a species. Our vessel, the Martin Sheen, was doing research off of west coast of Mexico and discovered a new species of beaked whale. And I was completely astounded. I didn't think we could actually discover a new species of whale, but we did.
Well, wow. Yeah, well, for how long? So I guess that brings me to my next question. Can we talk about the species that have been lost and which are on the verge if we don't do something?
I think one of the things that bothers me most about species that have gone extinct is that we've forgotten that they were there. And, what was the world like 500 years ago? 500 years ago on the eastern seaboard of the United States, there were beluga whales in Long Island Sound. There were walrus along the coast of Maine. There were polar bears in New England. They were called white bears then. The sea mink, extinct. The giant auk, extinct. The Labrador duck, extinct. The Newfoundland wolf, extinct. The eastern bison, extinct. We've forgotten that they were even there. That, to me, is the real tragedy. And the Carolina parakeet, the passenger pigeon. I can just go on. There's so many species that we've just obliterated, and we've forgotten that they were there. And my real concern now, though, is that we're wiping out species that are extremely important for diversity and interdependence. Back in the 70s, even the 80s, you're driving down the highway. People always had the problem of insects splattering on their windshields. It was always a mess and everything. You don't see that much anymore because there's been a real diminishment in the insect population. There's been a diminishment in microbial populations and in plankton populations. And this is going to have some serious consequences. Microbes are absolutely essential for a healthy soil, for growing plants. Microbes are essential for our own survival. It's funny, a few years ago, at the University of Texas, one of the student studies says, we don't need other species. Humans can survive on their own. We're intelligent enough, we can survive on their own. And so I looked at him, I said, well, what am I seeing when I look at you? Am I seeing an individual person? And he said, well, yes, of course. I said, no, I'm not. I said, part of you is you. The rest of it is about 1,700 different species of microbes and viruses and whatever that are making up your body, and you wouldn't be alive without them. In fact, each and every one of us are symbionts. We're actually colonies of living things, and those living things in us provide us with the manufacture of the vitamins for our body, help us digest our foods, even groom our hair. But we can't see them, but they're there, and they're very much a part of us. Every animal on this planet is really a symbiont of living things. So we need them. And here's one of the problems is viruses. Viruses are essential. We need them. Every single plant and animal on this planet has viruses associated with them, which allow them to live in a healthy manner. And what happens is when you diminish the number of a certain species, the viruses associated with those species, they have to go somewhere. It's called zoonotic transmission, that the viruses will jump to another species. We're seeing this happening with salmon, where salmon farms viruses or diseases are jumping to the indigenous salmon populations and infecting them. And we're seeing it with us. Transmission of viruses from primates, from birds, from pigs, from other animals. That's the origin of Ebola. In fact, the common cold comes from horses. Smallpox comes from cows. Flu comes from pigs and everything. So the problem is when these viruses jump, it isn't in the interest of the virus to kill the host, but while trying to maintain coexistence with the hosts, a lot of the hosts will end up dying. And it's the survivors that will actually then carry on. I mean, the reason people don't die of the bubonic plague today is because the people who survived the bubonic plague were the ones who had immunity.
Right.
Everybody else died off.
Right.
So the problem is we have to coexist. We have to coexist with viruses. We have to coexist with microbes. And when we create a situation where the world's out of balance and everything's out of balance, then we're going to have problems. There's going to be more viral problems in the future. Laurie Garrett wrote an incredible book in 1995 called The Coming Plague, where she predicted all of these viral outbreaks, everything. You know, of course, this was after AIDS, but then there was Ebola, hantavirus, West Nile virus, Zika virus. We didn't pay much attention to them for one very real reason.
Right.
They didn't kill white people.
You
know, suddenly COVID comes in and it's going after everybody. It's not
prejudices.
It's not discriminating here. And suddenly we sat up and paid attention to it.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people want to deny it, but that's at their own peril if they want to do that. But the reality is that in the next few decades, there will be more emerging zoonotic transmission of viruses. Already, we're starting to see the outbreak of a bird flu, which is coming through, which keeps coming and going, but it's coming out again. And on top of that, with the climate change, it's causing the melting of the permafrost, and that's releasing microbes and viruses. For instance, in 2017, 1,000 reindeer and one human being died from a release of a virus from the permafrost in Siberia. It was anthrax virus that was released, and that was caused from a long dead reindeer that had been frozen in the permafrost. And so scientists have actually
just held on.
Yes, well, scientists have actually been reviving worms and microbes from 40,000 years ago, that were frozen in the permafrost. And not only the release of the melting of the permafrost also has another real problem, is that it releases huge amounts of methane, and which is probably a more insidious greenhouse gas than CO2.
I think there's a lot of dangers with not caring for this planet and its ecosystem. I had read an article probably about a month ago now where they were concerned about an ice shelf in Antarctica, and it reached levels that like record levels, high levels of heat, and part of the shelf broke off.
Well, that's a routine thing in Antarctica. It's collapsing. In fact,
does it get that warm?
Well, it is getting much warmer, and the poles are warmer now than anywhere else on the planet.
Right.
And a few years ago, I thought that it was funny because they were saying that, oh, look at all the ice sheets around Antarctica. How can you say that it's getting warmer when all of the ice is extending farther than it's been before? Right. I said, well, why is that happening? Because that ice is fresh water. It's coming off the land. It's melting, and it's becoming ice when it gets up. But that ice is going to melt, and it's it's going into the water. So it's just it's moving the water off the land and turning it into ice and then back into water again. Right. But that's certainly not a sign that things are getting better. It's a sign that things are getting worse.
Yes.
We're already penguin populations in Antarctica are being seriously threatened by global warming.
Right. So it is getting a lot worse. So basically, with all of these species that are gone, which are on the verge now of being lost to us?
Well, it's pretty hard to say. We tend to only pay attention when something big, like an elephant or something, or a tiger is threatened and everything. The real problem are those species that we don't see. Those species that are really the engineers of the planet. Right. And of course, bees come to mind, and they're being threatened. But there are so many insects and microbes and viruses that are so essential for our survival, and we don't really give it much thought.
Well, absolutely. I've always made a point of having. I don't even cut the dandelions in the summer till the bees are done and the things are just on their own gone, because I just know how important it is to them. Here's another question dealing with different frequencies. I'll say 5G for now. only because I noticed something very peculiar this year. Here, obviously in Ontario, we have winter straight up. I mean, we had snow right into end of April, crazy. But I noticed robins were showing up at the beginning of February. I noticed that animals are just doing strange things. I noticed that we've been getting bees coming into the house and they're just messed right up. It's strange because this is not stuff that I've seen. A robin's not going to survive coming here at the beginning of February with snow and ice on the ground, and we were going through all these ice storms. And so with that being said, with frequency was where I was going with it. When you're in, let's say, the world's oceans and you're dealing with, let's say, military and sonar frequency, all of the stuff that these exercises that they're doing, that definitely cannot be helping.
Oh no. Well, we hear a lot about there's different types of pollution, chemical pollution, radiation, acidification, things like this. But what we don't hear about is sonic pollution, the noise pollution, because sound travels through the water medium much more, effectively than on the air. So there's low frequency sonar, which is used by the Navy, which has certainly has very negative effects, especially on marine animals like whales and dolphins. We don't know exactly the effect it has on fish, but probably does. But the other problem is not only oil drilling and sonic, using sonar to drill oil, but also strangely the installation of windmills at sea. We're fighting the windmill problems in France right now, and they're also doing it off of New England. And what that means is they use pile drivers to put the foundations into the thing, and the decibel levels of those pile drivers are just absolutely incredible, and that's having a very, very detrimental effect on marine life overall. Wow. So our opposition to these windmills is being criticized by environmental groups saying, we need alternative energy. Well, we have to give it some thought as to what that alternative energy is, what kind of damages are. Everybody thinks the solution is an electric car, for example, except that, where does electric cars get their energy from? A lot of times from coal burning power plants, and also they run on lithium. And where's the lithium coming from? We're devastating the ecosystems in Bolivia and in Africa to get lithium, and in fact using virtual slave and child labor to get it.
Yeah, that's right.
But we want these alternatives at all costs.
Cryptocurrency, there's another one that's.
Well, the real problem is too many people wanting too much.
Yes. Yeah, excess. No, that's I don't know. It bothers me a lot to see what's being done to the planet. Being empathic, it's a lot worse. It's just, which brings me to a different level of consciousness, of people connecting with, I guess, just what animals are, they're consciously aware. When you go in and you meet and your eyes meet with like a whale or a dolphin, it's like they're looking into your soul and vice versa. Don't tell me there's no consciousness there. Don't tell me.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
I mean, just the other day I saw a turtle that was struggling in the water on its back, and all these other turtles came and turned it over. So they're aware of, they're very much aware. All animals think, all animals dream, all animals can make decisions. We tend to think we're the most intelligent species on the planet. I don't think we are, but we tend to think that. And the reason being is that we define intelligence. So we decide that an intelligent being is something that can manipulate tools, hand-to-eye coordination, that makes it intelligent. But I look on intelligence as the ability to live in harmony with the natural world. Yes. In fact, I was debating a whaler in Norway one time. He said, well, Watson, you say that whales are more intelligent than people. How can you say something so stupid? and I said, well, George, I measure intelligence by the ability to live in harmony with the natural world. He says, well, by that criteria, cockroaches are more intelligent than people. I said, George, you're beginning to understand what I'm trying to tell you.
And it's just a little cockroach. So
Well, yeah, well, they've been around for 450 million years. They're doing pretty good.
I think so, right? I find it fascinating, and again with whales and with dolphins and their communicative skills. I had done research for another show that I had to do and found that Carl Sagan, have you ever heard of the Order of the Dolphin? I think I might have mentioned that the last time.
Mhm.
And they believed that dolphins were the key to extraterrestrial language, and they would be the key to communicating with beings from the stars because of the fact that they're just highly psychic beings, and of course, dealing with other beings. I think all animals are telepathic to a degree. You get some people who might be, but I thought it was an interesting research because it really shows you have these scientists who are at least saying these dolphins are highly intelligent, intelligent enough to be the key to something literally out of this world,
Well, there's
right?
a lot of scientists that certainly believe that. Dr. Paul Spong, Dr. Roger Payne,
Yeah,
Carl Sagan.
yeah,
Uh, so they certainly see that. Uh, when you look at the largest and most complex brain on the planet is the sperm whale brain. The
right,
second is the orca brain. The
right,
human brain is about 1,700 cubic centimeters on average. The orca
right.
brain is 6,000 cubic centimeters, and the sperm whale is a 9,000 cubic centimeter brain. And all
Wow.
cetaceans have 4 lobe brains compared to every other mammal that has 3 lobe brains. And if you
Right.
look at the brains of orcas and sperm whales, the convolutions on the neocortex are far, far more pronounced. I mean, they just look a lot smarter than we are. In
Right.
fact, remember in biology 101, they'll say, well, here's a brain of a rat, and here's a brain of a cat, and here's a brain of a chimpanzee, and here's a brain of a human being. And you can
Right.
see how the brain gets progressively larger, and the convolutions in the neocortex area get more complicated as you move up the chain. And
Right.
therefore, that's why humans are more intelligent than chimps, and chimps are more intelligent than cats. Okay, they never put an orca and they never put a sperm whale brain up there because it makes us look really, really stupid.
But it shows. With all due respect, it does show. It shows in the way they work together. I mean, you see people who have, I've watched videos of a couple where women are giving birth in the water, and it's like a dolphin therapy, and the dolphins are extremely concerned, and they come around and they comfort the mother as
Well, the
she's
dolphins
ready.
can see. The dolphins can see
Yeah,
through. They see through you with
right.
their sonar.
Yeah,
If humans could see through each other like dolphins can see through each other, there
yeah,
wouldn't be any such thing as deception.
right.
You wouldn't be able to hide your feelings in that
Mm,
way because they can see your blood moving, they can see your lungs moving, you know,
right,
they could see a quickening for your pulse or whatever if that happens.
right.
So they have that abilities which we don't have. So they're probably far more honest relationships in the dolphin world.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And the fact is that they see it and they respond to it, which is
Yeah,
just to
dolphins
me.
have saved human lives because they can see the water in the lungs as people are drowning. They can see that.
Yeah, boy, oh
Always,
boy.
I've always wondered, why do dolphins do that? Why do they? An orca could easily kill us.
Right,
There's never been a single case of an orca in the wild killing a human being. Yes,
right.
Tilikum killed 2 people. Tilikum was pretty much like a psychopath because after years and years of being in one of those
Yep.
concrete camps, it's going to make you crazy.
Hmm.
But in the natural world, no orca has ever killed a human being, which is amazing because
Hmm.
I remember the Straits of Bella Bella in 1975. I got into the water with 2 other people in front of an oncoming pod of orcas, and we were going to there swim with the dolphins. We're all love, peace, and good vibes with the orcas and everything. And suddenly, when you're in the water with just your head sticking out of the water and a pod of orcas is coming towards you,
Right.
it's a very intimidating experience because the first thought that came to my head was, these guys eat sea lions, and sea
Right,
lions are bigger than us,
right.
and then they all disappeared. Now, the only thing more intimidating than an oncoming pod of orcas is a pod that suddenly disappears. Now you have no idea where they are. And so as we sat there in the water, they surfaced right up alongside of us. And I was able to reach out, grab the dorsal of one of the orcas, and was pulled through the water by an orca, the most formidable predator on the planet. You don't go up to a lion and pet it on the head.
No.
But here I am, this orca was pulling me through the waters and then just flipped me off with his tail, and I went sliding back. But, why did that orca? Because I think the orca understands what we are, how dangerous we are. Back in 1910, Robert Scott's people in Antarctica, some orcas came up under the ice and knocked them off their feet because they thought they were penguins. But when they realized they weren't penguins, they just left them alone.
Right. That's what Dolly says. Don't wear black wetsuits. Yeah, that might not work in your favor. So, but she's also asking, do you know of brain activity research?
I don't know that much about brain activity research.
Right.
No.
Sorry, Dolly. Poor Paul.
Not a doctor.
No. Yeah, but if you have another question pertaining to it, maybe just throw it up in chat for sure. So right now, what is the main focus of the Sea Shepherd and yourself? What is the big? Everything's a situation, but what are you guys the main focus right now?
Well, we have 14 ships right now operating globally.
Right.
We have 2 ships patrolling the west coast of Africa, looking for poachers.
Mm-hmm.
2 ships in the Mediterranean doing anti-poaching patrols there. Wow. 1 ship in the Baltic. We have another vessel going into the Mediterranean to protect the Mediterranean monk seal. We have 1 vessel up the Amazon right now protecting river dolphins. Mm-hmm. We have 3 vessels in the Sea of Cortez protecting the endangered vaquita porpoise. Another vessel which is doing research off of the west coast of Mexico. And another vessel which has just left Brazil and is heading to southern Africa to do anti-poaching patrols there. So we're really concentrating on intercepting illegal activities that are exploiting marine wildlife and destroying marine ecosystems. Wow. And so I guess right now probably have about 250 volunteers from about 25 different countries that are on those ships.
Wow. So poaching seems to be the big one right now.
Well, it always has been. That's really what we have been as an anti-poaching society. But the great thing about the Sea Shepherd, the thing I'm most proud of, is that it's not an organization; it's a movement. And I don't even know what we're doing half the time because there's so many different people doing so many different things that it's hard to keep track of that. So no one person can actually control something like that, nor should they. And but it's all of these things are in really good hands. All of the people, there's 42 different countries where Sea Shepherd is, and the people in those countries are from those countries. Brazilians run Sea Shepherd Brazil, French run Sea Shepherd France, that kind of thing. And they pick their own campaigns, do their own projects, in addition to supporting the global projects that use the ships and doing high seas campaigns. Right. So that's what I'm most proud of, is the fact that it's a growing movement and it's a successful movement. Yes. And we don't compromise on what we're doing at all. Our clients are those species that live in the ocean. That's who we represent, and that's whose concerns that we're motivated to protect.
Now, do you find that dealing with, let's say, these, poachers, absolutely. The mighty dollar, unfortunately. But China was the biggest. They've got the real big ships. They were, you guys are chasing them forever. Do you find that they have slowed down a little bit?
No, they haven't slowed down. Neither have the Spanish, neither have the Russians. Everybody's out there exploiting everything they can. Unfortunately, the Chinese tend to be the most numerous and certainly in many ways the most relentless. There's 400 squid vessels that are operating south of the Galapagos right now. You can see them from space. It's like a city out there. We've gone in and we've intercepted and gotten a lot of evidence on their illegal activities. But who do you report to that they can actually do anything about it?
Yeah, I think that's where Dolly was coming in with her question. She goes, what are the laws at each place to stop them? Is there anything?
Well, the problem is that within 200 miles of the coast, you have the laws of that particular country. And you can, sometimes those are enforced, sometimes they're not. But outside of the 200-mile limit, it's the Wild West. There are no laws. There are laws, but nobody enforces them. So if there's no enforcement, there's effectively no laws. We operate outside of the 200-mile limit under the guidance of the UN World Charter for Nature that allows for NGOs, individuals, and even states to uphold international conservation law. But for the most part, people say, well, how do you get away with the things you do out there? Well, for the same reason they get away with what they're doing out there.
Right.
Because there is no laws.
Right. So, Dolly, put the poor man on the spot again. How about guns? It's like...
Well, we don't carry guns, but actually we do carry people who do carry guns.
There we go.
Depending on the government, for instance, when we're operating in Gabon, as soldiers from Gabon come on board, or Liberia, or in Mexico, it's the Mexican Navy. The people that we work with have the authority to enforce. We don't have that authority to enforce. We can only assist in the enforcement by providing ships and volunteers and things like that. But we have no actual authority ourselves. And I don't want to carry guns. I don't want to shoot anybody. So,
no, you got a good track record
on that. But that's the best we get. Outside of the 200-mile limit, we do aggressively intervene, but we've never had to use guns. We do have like deterrent weapons like water cannons and stink bombs and sometimes paintball guns and things like that. But nothing that's going to cause any real injury to any of the people that we're opposing.
Right, just aggravate.
In fact, strangely, we've actually saved the lives of fishermen out there that we've encountered. We had one guy who had a swordfish went right through his leg, and it was about to get gangrenous, and we got him off and took care of that. We've set a number of broken legs from people at the time. We actually rescued a number of people from a sinking ship off of Liberia last year. Some people died, unfortunately. Unfortunately, most of the children on that died, but we did rescue some of the people on there.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine you see all kinds of different things at sea. It's just a whole world in itself. Hey, Howie, how does Paul feel that the next place we will colonize is the sea? And should it be? I'm going to add to that question.
Well, I'd rather people not colonize the sea, actually. But world population pressure might force that to happen.
Right.
And of course, it's sea levels rising. It might have no choice, but
yeah. Oh, then your job's going to get a lot bigger.
The real problem is you have countries like Palau and the Marshall Islands and Kiribati. Those islands are very close to being covered. I mean, it doesn't take much to I don't think Palau is more than 1 meter above sea level.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, through history, ancient civilizations have been on islands that have all gone down. You look at 2 missing continents that are underwater. It happens. It just happens. But I agree with Dolly. Just leave it alone. Clean it up. So I agree. And Christina, thank you for everything that you do to protect our oceans and the environment.
Thank you.
My sentiments exactly. So basically, then, if somebody wanted to become a part of your organization, let's say you've got somebody out there who's like, yeah, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and just join and do it.
You can get involved on many different levels. People can certainly volunteer to go on the ships and work on the ships. People can be shore supporters, and help with the various chapters and that, or people who can just support us with contributions. One of the things actually I didn't mention, but for instance, in Africa, we have a program where women who want to work on ships have a very hard time getting sea time. Now, if you want to have a career in the merchant marine, you have to have sea time, that is experience on ships. And you have to get the sea time to get the certificates, but you can't get the certificate without sea time.
Right.
So we've done a partnership with a women's maritime college in Namibia, where we provide the opportunity for the women to serve on our ships, which gives them the sea time. And once they have the sea time, then they can write the exams for, whether it be engineering ticket or navigation ticket, that kind of thing after that.
Wow.
So that's always been a problem. When I first went to sea back in the 60s, I joined the Norwegian Merchant Marine. I was in the Swedish Merchant Marine and the Canadian Coast Guard. But back then, it was easy to get on the ships. I would walk into the Scandinavian shipping office in San Francisco, and 3 days later, I'd have a job.
Right.
But everything has changed so much. The average bulk carrier at that time had 60, 70 crew members. Now it has 21. And they're all, everything's automated. Everything is very difficult to get a job on a ship. So, and certainly even more difficult if you don't have the sea time. So we do help people with their sea times. My own nephew, he volunteered when he was 14. Every summer he would come with 14, 15, 16. And he wanted to work in the engine room. And today he's a chief engineer at a dry dock in the Philippines. So, he was only able to get that sea time by being on our ships. So we've actually assisted a lot of people throughout the years with getting that sea time for their qualifications.
Right. So it's a win-win for everybody. Wow. So what do you have coming up then? I know that you're a busy guy, but I love it because you're a family guy and you're doing your little guy is quite the genius. I always say the little savant, quite the little chess player.
We're just doing a chess tournament. Right now I'm
it.
in Columbus, where he's doing Ohio, where he's doing a chess tournament. So he's
Right.
good at it, but more important, he likes it.
Yeah.
So that's we're encouraging in that. If he loses interest, then he loses
So
interest.
be
But
it. But yeah.
right now he really likes it, and he's winning. So I
Right.
think we were in Dallas, Texas last week, and 214 participants. He came in 26.
Hey, that's
which,
pretty good. How
considering
old is he? 4,
5
5?
years old, he was the youngest. So he's up against kids ranging up to 16.
Wow.
So he did pretty good on that.
Good for him. Absolutely. So basically you are able to Sea Shepherd is pretty much self-sufficient, and you are able to just enjoy your life and be an overseer, so to speak,
Well, I'm doing a lot of
reason.
writing, a lot of
Are you?
talking, that kind of things. But
Right.
but also I'm on the boards of all of those various groups, so I'm able to keep up with and give advice to the operations, all the ships and the campaigns. In addition to the ships, we also have a lot of campaigns. For instance, we have a crew right now on the island of Mayotte, which is a little island between Madagascar and Mozambique, and we're trying to stop the turtle poachers on that island.
Oh.
And that. So we have our marine debris crew, and what they do is they go to remote places to remove fishing debris, plastic debris. We cleaned up the problem on Cocos Keeling Island, hundreds and hundreds of tons of stuff removed there. We took 45 tons off of Cocos Island off Costa Rica. We've cleaned up beaches in the Northern Territory of Australia to protect the turtle nests there. So cleaning out plastic's a real problem. When I was in exile in the South Pacific, I spent most of my time just cleaning beaches in Tonga or Vanuatu or places like that.
Right. I think if the world could get its recycling under control, it still baffles the mind how many people don't think this is a serious issue.
Well, I don't think that people realize the extent of it, that Evian alone produces 100 million plastic bottles every year. Coca-Cola, hundreds of millions of bottles. I mean, the number is actually astounding. And a lot of plastic pollution in the ocean comes from places we never even think about. One of the study in Norway, for instance, found that 40% of the microplastics came from automobile tires. Just going down the road, losing little microscopic pieces of rubber off of your tires, which gets washed into the ocean. And that we don't think about that. But the problem is not plastic in the ocean so much as it's microplastic in the ocean. It breaks down, and that microplastic's now getting into plankton. It's getting into fish, and if people eat fish, I can guarantee you that you have microplastic in your bodies.
Right. And let's not lose fact of the site that you have the larger like whales who are ingesting some of this as well, and you have the sea life that roams the bottom. And you've got how many birds and turtles that are getting caught up in this stuff. It's just, God, can we not just be more eco-friendly?
Well, and the problem, in addition to that, the higher you are on the food chain in the ocean, of course, pilot whales, dolphins, and are up there, tuna, things like that, then the higher the levels of heavy metals like methyl mercury and you'll find in the ocean. One of the reasons I didn't mention, one of the reasons for the diminishment of phytoplankton in the ocean, where it's been a 40% diminishment since 1950, is because phytoplankton needs certain things to survive, like fertilizer, really, which is primarily nitrogen, iron, and magnesium. And they get that from the feces of marine mammals and seabirds and fish. So when you diminish the numbers of cetaceans, the number of seabirds, then you diminish the nutrient supply to the phytoplankton. Whales are literally the farmers of the ocean. Their crop is phytoplankton, and that phytoplankton is a crop that sustains all life on the planet. So whales, when people say, why should we save whales? Well, one of the main reasons, aside from the fact that they have every right to exist, but one of the main reasons is that, well, if you want to survive, you've got to protect the ocean, and the whales are doing more to protect the ocean than we are.
Right. And yet they're running for their lives most of the time. It's just, there's just no, it's like a vicious circle.
Well, it's mainly because I don't think that we really think things through very well as human beings. Ecologically, we don't understand the three basic laws of ecology. There are three basic laws. One is the law of diversity. The strength of an ecosystem depends upon diversity within it. Two, the law of interdependence, that all species within an ecosystem are dependent upon each other. And three, the law of finite resources, that there's a limit to growth, a limit to carrying capacity. And when one species steals the carrying capacity from other species, it causes diminishment in both diversity and interdependence.
Yeah, well, I think you had it right. We don't have the smarts. I think, we're sort of low man on the totem pole with that kind of thing. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I think if we actually had an understanding, it's very quite simple when you think about it. You have to stop pollution, and we pollute everything. On an average, we are the species that kills for sport, that doesn't think twice, just we just pollute. We produce things that are harming ourselves. And then we try to come up with solutions as to how do we stop harming ourselves? Oh, wait, let's find another way to harm ourselves, but just not as bad as the last way.
Well, the other thing, too, is we're fighting wars. And one of the reasons we're fighting wars is because it's a big industry. Right now, you got this war going on with Ukraine and Russia. Who are the big winners? The arms industries. If you have shares in the arms industry, you're doing really well right now, because the more they fight, the more weapons they're going to use, and those things cost a lot of money.
They do. That could be better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, but it never will, because you build a tractor and you sell a tractor for $100,000 and it lasts you 10 years. You build a tank for $40 million and it probably lasts 6 months.
That's true.
And then you rebuild it again. And so the problem is that we encourage these wars. Way back after Yeltsin, split with the Soviet Union, he actually asked for a treaty between the European and Americans and everything, like almost like a new NATO, really. Let's all join this treaty together. And it was denied. Why was it denied? We need war. If you don't have war, you're not going to be able to sell weapons. If we're not going to sell weapons, then the economy is going to suffer.
Right.
And everything.
The war machine has been something that's gone on since almost like over the last 2,000 years.
Right.
War has just been there. If I have to read one more time about war, I mean, there are never any winners. Never, ever.
No, there isn't.
Except for those who are lining their pockets.
The other thing that bothers me lately is that, every time I see people, a Russian ship has sunk and people are killed and Russian tanks are blown up. These are people that are dying and everybody's cheering them on,
I know.
I don't want to cheer on the Ukrainians. I don't want to cheer on the Russians either. There are people from all sides who are dying on this. And I don't think people actually understand that there are real people dying on both sides of this thing. No, and overall, society doesn't care because a lot of money is being made on it.
Well, yeah, I think the higher ups in society, for sure. I think people, I think we're just kept so busy in our lives, just trying to survive, just trying to exist. Prices of everything are going up. You're just trying to keep up. It's really tough to put yourself outside that box and look at what's really going on around you. A lot of people have that, well, okay, thankfully it's not here, so I don't need to worry about it. I've heard so many people make comments like that. I'm an observer. I always say, like I master the art of observation, and I read a lot, and I look at comments and stuff. And I'm just like, it is amazing to me how many people say, well, it's not here, so I don't need to focus on it. No, you need to focus on it because it could be here.
Well, everything affects everything else. I mean,
yeah,
if this situation in Ukraine gets out of control, it could resort to nuclear weapons. If that happens, then we're all in trouble.
Exactly. That's what Amelia says. Still living in uncertain times. Again, Christina's comment, being a little lighter, the Aboriginal people understand this concept very well, and we should learn from them. And that's the concept of, yes, educating ourselves and knowing that you coin it right. If the oceans die, we die.
Yeah.
It really is that simple.
It really is that simple.
Yeah. When you say it, I think people just kind of go, oh, you're just being melodramatic. I'm like, no, pretty much that's how it is. Again, and I think it comes down to education. Do you ever think about putting together, and I mean, it may be a little bit cliche, but something even on a website, or having some of your volunteers, like, just put a little course or a little class or a book or something to educate people, and maybe, hey, you know what?
Oh, yeah. We do that.
Yeah.
With the various chapters, different countries do that. We have educational programs. We put out booklets and things like that, especially children's programs. I've done a couple of children's books myself, and
right.
But we do that.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Again, thank you for the info, Paul. Great show. It has been a real pleasure having you on, and I know you were away with your family, so I don't want to, take you away from them for much longer. But I do want to thank you for everything that you do and for your service, because honestly, I have followed you for so many years, and I thought to myself, my God, nobody understands it better. And it's putting your money where your mouth is. And you yourself have put yourself in the line of fire, so to speak. And you have all these amazing people who work with you, who believe in the cause and go the distance. And we have all of you guys to thank for this. Because otherwise, thank you. Because I think we would be in a lot worse shape otherwise. So thank you. And is there anything you want to say? Plug yourself, website, all of that.
Well, it's easy to find Sea Shepherd on seashepherd.org and everything. It's on Facebook and everything like that too.
Yeah, right. And your own website for anybody who would like to reach out.
Well, I have people can sign on to I have a personal newsletter. It's you just go to www.paulwatson.com and you sign on to it.
I am definitely a subscriber to that newsletter, and I enjoy getting it. So there we go. Amelia's got it up there. It is actually in the Facebook feed. So not just the Facebook feed, but anybody who watches any of these archives on video, you can go in and catch all of those as well. And next one, here we go. There we are. So thank you for joining us, and I will humbly thank you again, and let you get back to your lovely wife and children.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Wow, that's all I can say. It's such an amazing show of just information, knowledge. Every now and then we will do a show. I mean, all of our shows have a degree of awareness and education. This is a type of show that essentially is really about awareness, because it's one of those out of sight, out of mind things. And I think people really need to take the time and slow down and really pay attention to what it is that's going on out there. I'm going to do a really quick, because I know I am late with this. Station ID, you are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Droshi and Amelia Pisano. We are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM in New Orleans, fully sponsored by amazing people over at Folgers Coffee. Thank you. Sponsored also by Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, the Sonic Surgeon. We thank him for our intro and our outro. We're so appreciative for all of our sponsors. I almost wanted to get into, talking about the Folgers family and how they were, instrumental in big harpooning family, whale harpooning family. I think, just don't mention that one. But again, it's history. But Amelia's got some. Yep, here we go. We're going to post up some of Amelia. She can't talk, but she can post. So need to continue reminding. Very important. Start small and simple with recycling. Absolutely agree. Next big one, remove plastic from your life. Yes, that is huge. And that's a simple one, really. Just, get a reusable, recyclable glass water bottle to just use. If you have to eat fish, find sustainable fish. Maybe you can explain what sustainable fish is, Amelia, for those who do not know. And yes, it is absolutely very, very easy. And with that being said, I'm just trying to go back into some of the other comments that were being made that we had to miss, because I knew his time was limited and I really just wanted to let him speak. Hello, paranormal consultant. Very nice to get that in. Sustainable. There we go. Sustainable farmed, which is not affecting the wild. Some people will tell you that they prefer wild as opposed to farmed. Apparently there's a different taste with that. I don't know. I am not a connoisseur of ocean life at all. So I can honestly say, nope. Dolly, yep, in on the stainless steel. Glass and stainless steel, absolutely. There's so many different ways that we can do our part in all of this. And I was so honored to be sitting across from Captain Paul Watson, because honestly, he's just so knowledgeable. There's nothing that we could not ask that he just didn't have like real viable answers for. But the wild belongs to the beauties of the seas. I agree with you. So I don't eat any of it at all. I'm just, the ocean for me is something that I remember being probably about 11 or 12. And I thought to myself, I wanted to be an oceanographer. I'm thinking my sea legs weren't too good at that time, but I wanted to be an oceanographer. And I took it upon myself, even at that age, to go to the library and get books and learn everything I could about all different species of sharks and whales and other ocean wildlife. I never ended up being an oceanographer, but the point is I still took that time, even at that age, to educate myself. It's really not tough. If you want to do something, find ways to raise funds for them to continue the work. Absolutely. But you can also do things within your own community. You can go out and clean up beaches, clean up the parks. Just, it doesn't have to be for an organization. It can be for yourself and your own community, your own families. The sign of being a researcher, I think so. God, it's all I do now. But, do it for your own communities. I believe in giving back to your community in one form or another. And I've participated in donating my time on so many different levels. And I think with Captain Paul Watson and Sea Shepherd, yes, primarily about oceans. But like he said, and I was really happy to hear him say, but we go and we clean up beaches and we clean up habitats and we assist. So, if you can do something like that, it makes a difference, because you have wildlife all around you. Seriously. And I mean, believe me when I tell you, they really need the help. If you live by the water, especially, just clean up. What you said with the dolphin's language being the key. Yes. Communicating with other beings. I'll tell you that the Order of the Dolphin, if you just look it up, Carl Sagan is just one of the researchers who works on that. And they truly believed that how the dolphins communicated would be the key to communing with extraterrestrials. Reason being, I can give you two examples. Joe and I were talking about this one time, and he made mention one time of a craft coming in over the water, and then all of a sudden, all these dolphins congregated underneath the craft, and they started to communicate. And if you remember, I think it was Star Trek, the fourth film that they did. I think it was the fourth. I could be wrong, where they had the two humpback whales, and they were coming in, and ET was trying to communicate with them, but they were extinct. So they were waiting for a response, and they weren't getting it, and they were concerned about, about the planet. So they had to go back in time, and they had to get two humpback whales and bring them back and put them in the oceans to basically begin again. And what a lot of people don't realize, even about Gene Roddenberry, is that he actually allegedly met the voyage home. That's right, with the Council of Nine, apparently. And this was all set in motion to bring humanity into actually, I guess, being comfortable with the thought of other worldly beings being around us. Not so far out of it, if you think about it. But dolphins definitely are. They definitely are the key. I truly believe it. Dolly says, take burlap bags. They drain water, use them to collect garbage, and small nets. Yep. I'm definitely on board with that. That's a great idea. It's not one I would have thought of. So yeah, The Voyage Home. I remember that one. Great film. But I don't know, guys. I think it really doesn't take a whole lot. And here, we'll put these websites back up again. paulwatson.com and seashepherd.org. Now, the Sea Shepherd, there's lots. There's lots of them. I follow them pretty much everywhere that I see them, to try to give them that support. And again, this show, doing our part. I've had so many guests say to me that this show and what Amelia and I do is providing a platform to raise awareness on many, many different levels. I think a lot of different podcasts are like that. It's not just us. I'm just very fortunate to have known some pretty amazing people, in my 2 decades in my field, and that all reaches out. It branches out. It's like a spider web. It really does just go out. And if you take the time to research things and topics, you end up coming across people. And some of these people, they educate us just as much as they educate everybody else. We don't go in here thinking, oh yeah, we know all this. We don't. Even the whole Great White thing tonight, I was the first to say, I did not know that. Big misconception. That was completely enlightening to me. So, it's just don't take it all face value. Shark Water, great documentary. There you go. That's another good one. All right. Facebook.com Sharkwater, and go check that out, people. But with that being said, we are pretty much coming up to the end of the segment. And oh my gosh, it was really a great, great show. Yeah, she says Paul's also in this one. So go check it out, guys. Sharkwater. On Facebook. Man, big thank you to Captain Paul Watson. And just, it did fly by, Amelia, absolutely. It just question after question, you just want to know everything. And he was very gracious with his time. It was the second time on the show. So many tech issues the first time. And we made sure this time to make a point of doing a sound check beforehand. And it just went off without a hitch. So thank you, Captain Paul Watson. Again, and thank you for everything that you do. You have devoted your life to doing exactly what you're doing now. And your legacy has grown, I don't know how many fold, but it will continue on. This is never going away. This is indeed a movement, and this movement will continue on. Lovers or haters, it makes no difference. It's not about the people. It is about those you are helping, and it's those who cannot help themselves. So thank you. Again, big thank you to Folgers Coffee for being amazing and being a part of our journey since day one. Big thank you to Dr. Snick again, Justin Snicker, for the intro, the outro. Please remember to stop by our YouTube pages for the network: International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. Bam! Said it. Not even thinking about it. While you're there, head on over to Facebook on the Outer Realm and show Amelia and I some love. Yeah, just give a little subscribe there. Like us up. If you want to see a specific guest or topic on the show, or you have a story to tell, please only at the outer realm contact at gmail.com. It's the outer realm contact at gmail.com. That is all that we can respond to. All of this messenger and all of this social media is just too overwhelming for me. There's just too much. So you will get a response. Might take a bit of time, but usually I can be right on it. And Amelia says, check out tomorrow the group page article on Friday the 13th. A little bit of history with that. So that's going to be up there. I will make a point of getting that up there because somebody's in Facebook jail. So next week, wow, we've got like quite the lineup. So be prepared. Dolly, I think you're going to love this one. Wednesday night, for the very first time, we have Dr. Joseph Burks, and he's going to be discussing ETs, CE5 contact, and so much more. He's just really, really versed, and I was truly like aghast when he messaged, was like, what? You want to be on this show? Yes. So it was awesome. Thursday night, okay, he's Brad Olson. He's become a personal favorite with a lot of our listeners. So Brad Olson returns again, and we're going to be discussing book number 2, Future Esoteric. Now, I've read this thing and I've got to refresh myself on it, but all I can say is put your seatbelts on, because if you loved him the first time, you are absolutely going to love him this time. And Wayne says, I want to hear from Wayne Maliski, the raccoon wrangler. Oh my God, that's just like a story in itself. We're going to leave that one right there. Anyway, Amelia and I would like to wish you guys all a fantastic weekend. Please be safe out there. And we'll see you next week with 2 more incredible guests. So good night.